Hey guys, I want to go ahead and continue on here because I want to try to get these out as much as possible. Some people are like doing their study guides together. I put that stuff on Moodle. It should be on top there, like those resources and everything. I'm trying. It's not in any order, but it just may also like something to help you out. So glad to see that people are already beginning to like. I think the study guide and working on it together is much better, almost even better than this. I know people, but Mr. Price, you're going through the exam. Like, yeah, I know, but think long term. I know you're thinking all about grades and numbers and all that. I worry about learning and worrying about people getting something out of it and everything. I mean, why would you go through a course? And there's so many students who do this. They got A's, but they didn't learn anything. It's just really disappointing about our educational system when that happens. Like that. You get all the A's in the world, but hey, I didn't really learn anything from the course. All right. All right, I'm continuing on here. Let me go on, and so I can get this out to you and everything. And then if you guys have questions, I don't mind a text, like again until 9 o'clock. I say, or an email, and then I can kind of clear up some things too as well. I said, can you clear up this and everything? Just kind of going back a little bit to, War of 1812. You think about this, all the reasons why. And I said like about the Native Americans, and also too, it's almost like we're already thinking about empire trying to take over Canada. Uh, Talk about the air of good feelings. You cannot sleep on the Missouri Compromise, and I'm going to talk about that. I put up there something about crisis to Civil War, and it has about Compromise of 1850, cancel Nebraska Act. That's a definite thing that you kind of like make sure you sort. That's worth about 2 or 3 questions right there. All right. Think about this. You can miss 10 questions on this and you still get a 90 like that on there because it's just 1 point apiece, including your study guide. So, John Marshall. John Marshall made the court. John Marshall was known for again support implied powers. He interpreted it as very loosely. He supported the Federalist cause, even though there's no Federalist post War of 1812. So you know that like he had a much big impact on the courts, given his power with judicial review. So you gotta know that. I'm big on market revolution. I have a big question on there, even though it's worth 1 point, about things that involve the market revolution from Samuel Slater to Erie Canal. And the Erie Canal, just to kind of go around, it really divides the North and South. It creates a consumer economy, kind of like really helps the Mormons form. Uh, in this time, it creates Foster's newspapers. So, started in 1817, completed in 1825. All the inventions, not naming one, but that all came in there, the steamboats, the canals. And this is more about, I told you before, this is more what I use the acronym on here is about tick, like it's again on here the TICCs on here. So more than again the rows on there. All right. So what this is all about, like again in the first market revolution, you're more in the iron, again the coal, like things of that nature in here. So the canals on here. So and that's what again this first market revolution was about. And yeah, I think about the video. The guy is talking about the telegraph. He's saying that hey, you know, 1815, the U.S. was a third world country. Right? He talking about the tyranny of distance and how that's going to be torn down with the development of the telegraph in the 1840s and how that's going to spur newspaper information, things that you need. So that's all about our first industrial revolution at the time here. Flipping page over, one of the major players, Andrew Jackson. Now, like when he's elected, when he's defeated in an election, 1824. Things are going. The big thing again is the nullification crisis of 1832. What starts as the tariff abominations of 1828, and then how John C. Calhoun, was always an advocate for states' rights. They thought this was a step into taking out slavery as well. So in their economy, their basis, all their kind of like line on here. So they definitely thought like this was not a good thing. So they're going to like protect us. They said, hey, Jefferson and Madison already talked about this compact theory. That is, hey, if the states do not like something, then hey, they can nullify something. It's the ordinance of nullification. Jackson says, I agree with a lot of my Southern brothers, but this is one thing I do not agree, and he preserved the Union. Um, and of course, the Whigs are formed in 1833 really just as what unites them is their opposition to Andrew Jackson. And, and they think that like him tearing down a bank is, a bad thing because it's going to mess up, commercial interests like for all yeah, in there. So, but a lot of people thought the bank, represented like, some kind of excessive power. The common people who supported, so-called common people supported Andrew Jackson. Um, but the Whig Party saw a different role for the government. They're kind of like the new Federalists in a way. They want the tariffs. They want the American system, the BIT, like that in there. So, um, yeah, you think we're getting into like slavery and the slavery question, slave revolts, even from 1739, the Stoner Rebellion, South Carolina. But compared to the most of the revolts in the Western Hemisphere, very little slave revolts and everything. Nat Turner was definitely like you're talking about 60 people were killed, very some, but not typical and everything. You see kind of Gabriel Prosper's rebellion in Virginia, Denmark Vesey conspiracy in South Carolina, which didn't even really, take off in a way. So none is prevalent as a way. It doesn't mean that like, slaves like, are enjoying themselves. It's just they weren't like, very typical at the time. But with the Second Great Awakening, with post-American Revolution, with the Northerners kind of like, forming their manumission societies, you get this growing question of slavery, and you're going to see the South always trying to defend it. It becomes now in the 1840s and 50s not only a necessary evil, it's a positive good. You have your defenders, George Fitzhugh, just name one besides John C. Calhoun, always trying to twist it and kind of say here, compared, I know it's slave labor, but free labor isn't all that great, particularly if you go down like, to the northern factories and to the industrial workers and everything, the exploitation of them. And that's what's going on at this time. So, um, and most people did not, was down south whipping a slave or had slaves and everything, but a lot of whites went along with it because I think also too it gave them kind of somewhat superiority, but they want to be like the planters themselves. They want to be that. That's their economic system down south. So they figure like, hey, this is where I want to be. If I'm down south, I'm probably not going to leave where I, you know, live. I'm going to be in the same vicinity. Maybe there's a chance for me once I invest in some land, own some slaves, I become like them. So they kind of like went on with the system, even though most people did not have, slaves. But it's like a slave culture that kind of like was very prevalent down south. All right. So I don't want, and again, just to clear up, the North is not like, hey, we love, want blacks to be equal with us and live next to us and once again. And no, there's not like that going on. I just want to clear it out. Second Great Awakening, you got the Reform, you got the Temperance Movement, you got the Utopian movements here, like that. So many Utopian movements, so many like the Temperance Movement. This is really early progressivism without government. All right, isn't that cool? Once again, just to kind of know that it's without government. It's more of a grassroots kind of thing here, and what you're trying to form up, but it's really spurred by it. And I already talked about the Second Great Awakening. Please see the first video. Please look at the notes and everything, what they were about. So, the ladies, again, you get the 1848 Declaration of Sentiments, talking about the tyranny of men, the cult of true womanhood, you know, talking about like, again, a woman's place, their sphere where they should be, not really, like for any type of like, equality, even though women were again, with the Second Great Awakening, wanting more. That they want, some of the women were calling for suffrage, but a lot of times they're just calling for property and kind of parenting rights of their kids as well. And again, Seneca Falls, 1848, very significant in there like that, So, Manifest Destiny, I think that's since first grade and everything, about that. So, well, what do you need? We need to go west. You get the, Mexican American War. You got to think about another significant president is James K. Polk, 54-40 fight. He's going to reduce the tariff. He's going to get California. Like I said, again, Texas is kind of already in, and then he provokes a war. And again, another $15 million for the Mexican secession there. Yeah, immigration is just, spurring on. We have much more immigrants as a proportion or percentages back in the 19th century, early 20th century than we do today. I know, surprise, surprise, but people think it's like so many immigrants coming out. I won't have what's going to happen over here. They come over and they take all our services. Once again, that's why I can't get rich. But mostly from Ireland and Germany are some, but still, again, always majority from England, France, like that in a way. But still, you get these really larger numbers and percentage wise coming from them, and you can know the result from that nativism, know nothing party is formed. You get all the acts, you come to him, we're getting ready for slavery, and the debate. 1850s is just crazy like that. So you gotta know compromise 1850. You gotta know the Kansas Nebraska Act. You gotta know the Lincoln Douglas debates. You gotta know about Bleeding Kansas like that. Significance of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Just you don't have to know a lot. Just kind of like put it all together. Um, you know, a debatable over popular sovereignty. The Freeport Doctrine, right? Like, was that like who proposed that? Like, who's and what does it relate to? Like that, So before we get into Fort Sumter and the secession crisis here, that like well, the rest of the lower South will secede and we get the cause of the Civil War. Dred Scott's big case. That's something to look into. Uh, I think I have a question on here about matching the winning presidential candidates, like certain years, because there's certain years here that we have great, like really volatile like elections, 1800, 1824, 1828. So I mean, like who are the winners around there? So and then you you got to think about Kraft and Lincoln waiting for Fort Sumter to be fired upon so he can kind of unite the North there as well. Okay, all right. So advantages of the North and South. Again, North like population. I always say like the 22-9, the railroads, the infrastructure. Again, organization, which I always just again I go back to world history. People always say Mr. Price, the Ostrogoths and Visigoths, all the barbarians, they were great warriors. They just weren't organized. And again, you get more the North, more organized, more infrastructure, more communication. Lincoln's going to use the telegraph like crazy, and so are they. Like the military. Once again, and the soldiers are going to do that as well to stay in communication with people out in the field. Really makes a big advantage. Problem is, most of the Civil War Union leaders, even though they're trained at West Point, they're professional. They're actually good people. McClellan, Admiral Burnside. I mean, you know, um, Meade. They just really just hesitant, and that's where the Confederates do have an advantage. Not so much that they're much military geniuses. It's just like they're beginning to see that like their tactics tend to be a little bit like more effective than what the Union has laid out. Probably on paper, if Lincoln, you follow Lincoln and Grant's plan, you probably would have like, they would have followed those tactics. Probably would have ended the war sooner. But that's like the kind of counterfactual. What about like other things besides the significant battles, Bull Run, I take Gettysburg, Vicksburg, and Antietam, like that. And I think I kind of got that out of the way. Antietam before Gettysburg and Vicksburg, just FYI. But anyway, um, that like Great Britain, the Confederates definitely trying to get Great Britain into war, maybe even the French and everything on their side. But Great Britain was trying to like saying, maybe we should stay out of this. We've abolished slavery like way before, like in the 1830s, and it doesn't look like we don't want to be on the losing side, and we can get our cotton supplies from someplace else and everything. So that's kind of foreshadowed how the cotton market is going to be starting flooding and really hurts the South really in the 1880s. As we're just looking ahead. Um, Results of the Civil War. Like again, you got to know Lincoln's plan. You got to know like that, like how conciliatory towards the South. If he probably stayed alive, as opposed to the radical Republicans. Um, Think about that, and how really the antagonism between Johnson and radical Republican. They try to pass these Civil Rights Act. Johnson vetoes, and they pass the amendments. This is why you get the 14th and 15th Amendments to make sure that it's the highest law of the land that blacks have citizenship and blacks can vote. You know, and Johnson opposed that. He even tries to run against him in 1866, even more antagonizing the radical Republicans. Uh, what always that's going on is the hard money. I told you the patterns of the late 19th century that I have on here: the hard money versus soft money. They're going to end the greenbacks because you should just really remain at this time with gold and silver. And you know what's going to eventually happen to the silver as well in 1873. They're going to demonetize silver as well, because you have really the Republicans who are kind of pro-business. They want to kind of like more solid money, the more solid investments, the kind of more return on their investments. And that's why they are for more hard money and almost limited amounts of money, making it scarce, lower prices that benefits them. Hence the rise of populism, greenback movement. I guess I'm kind of going a little bit in reverse here. you know, uh, the Grangers, like again, everything, and the Alliance, a party forming the populism. The as you can see here, the exam is kind of coming towards the end. Not as many questions on here with the Gilded Age and really progressive movement on here, so like that. So Reconstruction ends. That's a pretty significant date, and why? What's going on here? Like at the end of Reconstruction, what kind of symbolic of that? And again, you had the beginning, the Black Codes. You had the Force Act around 1872, 1873, a couple of force enforcement acts that Grant was able to get rid of the Klan. But the South is trying to redeem themselves, and the Southern Redeemers, as I was telling the student, all they were just trying to do is restore white supremacy and really kind of also improve, the Southern economy with industrialization. And unfortunately, that's going to succeed in a way by the 1890s for the most part, and becomes really the solid South for the Democrats. Right? And if you're a black, you're a freedman, you're a Republican, because they're the ones that emancipation, that won for all the 14th and 15th Amendment here. Um, we get into industrialization. I even say, like that, you got AP history makes me nauseous. Know what the radical Republicans are doing on their Pacific Railway Act / Transcontinental Railroad, rail land grant, things of that nature. So kind of that's something significant there of what they were doing. You get Transcontinental Railroad. You get trusts are forming. Eventually, in the early 1900s, of Carnegie selling J.P. Morgan, get a formation of U.S. Steel. So, that kind of formation. And then also now you get the reaction to, as we said here. So, I want to do that curse license stay there. But anyway, because it has that little highlight probably or something in there. But anyway, um, so you have that in the Gilead, but the reaction to that, of course, is the formation of Nice Labor, 1869, kind of the more radical labor union, in England, American Federation of Labor, the good labor union. Nice Labor falls out of favor. A Haymarket, they're a bunch of anarchists, and see what happened. Policemen are killed. They just try and do their job, and it really is a low point for kind of a high point in the formation of labor unions, but really a low point for their support amongst the government and mostly with the public. In the 1893, you get the Pullman strike and everything. So it's not too much support for labor locally in a way, like with the homestead you get, but not as much as in general for the labor unions. Um, I love my Henry George Progress and Poverty, Tax on Land. He's trying to say here that he even, spurs this thing about having a Labor Day and having that, like, everything in the Gilded Age, everything that's glitter is not gold, like on here as well. So, um, Herbert Spencer, social Darwinist, he's kind of like, along with William Graham Sumner, saying, hey, Carnegie and Rockefeller are great. that are people. It's really scientific in a way if you think about it like that. It's been kind of proven there, and it's survival of the fittest if you want to think about like biology of the time, and that's what they're thinking. That like you're born with greatness, and you should admire them. You should not interfere with any type of regulation, taxes, or some type of control. Okay? Oh, don't forget about Native American. I don't have like the battles and stuff like that, but you think about what's the 19th century is like put them on reservations, and then all of a sudden, like the dogs kind of break them up, make them farmers, assimilate them and everything. So the Native Americans in here, kind of not on there, but always with the Native American cause, and I do want you to think about this and everything, was the three D's. Kind of like I talk about, like the three P's for like slavery. Always profit, prejudice, and priorities. That's why they didn't get rid of slavery. Well, you think about the three D's for like Native Americans: disposability. You don't see people saying, "Hey, you cross on their land." You do see a few, but eventually, the Cherokee removal, with the gold and the Black Hills, like that, the death of the disease and everything, just kind of disunity, well, why don't the Indians unite, like that? Well, because they've always been traditionally, they're self-autonomous, sovereign tribal groups, in there, you know, and so that's why, again, disunity, and then disease is very, very, devastating for Native Americans. Just kind of like that kind of quick, that kind of help you a little bit, even just throughout the years about the early Native American history. Looking on here, get into a little progressive, but only thing that's only progressive really the early progressive movement with a little bit of the kind of like the settlement houses, Jacob Riis, kind of the early kind of like muckraking reform, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, Florence Kelly, like that, in there. So Francis Willard, just what they were trying to do. And again, you guys said it so much and everything about cleaning up government. Temperance continues on. Suffrage for them. Everything that kind of goes on the umbrella. Referendum. They want the initiative. Again, uh, they want a secret ballot. And go. They want to make things efficient. They want to make things like again streamlined and using science. And they want to create a more perfect society. Settlement houses were helping like the immigrants and helping out, like trying to create the communities. But again, they kind of had that double-edged sword that we think today we kind of don't, smile upon it. That they, almost to a point where they wanted to, sterilize certain people, and they wanted to somehow you can do it almost in a scientific way. The science of good genes here. And I think like American imperialism, that kind of ends it in a way, ends the midterm. Don't just think Spanish American War. Think about like John Hayes policies over there in China. And I think in a way, I mean, like this is good because it's kind of like ends up a little about like a few minutes, so it's not exactly 30 minutes, but this is something that you can kind of like just kind of go down the line and you're listening to me, you know, whether my voice is just so like, annoying or um, too garrulous or lugubrious about like again too verbose, then you just kind of hear these things go through this. Please don't stay up late tonight over a push midterm exam. Please understand that if you miss 10 questions, and you probably will not because you do not know things. That is part of a push exams too, is the kind of chicanery, the subterfuge of the multiple choice questions, the timing, the atmosphere. This week, you got to take it on this count. Give yourself a little break about, you know, about your performance and everything, and always trying to get 100 or an A and everything. Think about this, like how much you've learned this semester. You should feel really good about yourself. And parents are parents, people are people, and that's why a lot of colleges look at your transcripts that they took an A push course. They don't look at the grades. Much as I try to tell you that and everything, they know you went through some kind of real rigor when you take an AP course. And that's what they're learning, that you've taken it and you had some kind of success in here. So I cannot say enough about getting some sleep. Work on your study guide. That'd be good enough. Listen to what I'm saying here. kind of go down like a maybe a little checklist and see if you've kind of got that. And I'm more worried about May 10th than like really tomorrow. Worried about the long term that you've actually learned something this semester. And this is for those people who probably been sleepwalking, maybe like, through my class or maybe some other classes. Hopefully you'll just kind of like, when the break is over, maybe you kind of recommit yourself in a way. And I do, and I'm always positive about that. And there's always a chance where that switch turns on, you do recommit yourself on this and everything. So, and enjoy your time off in a way. Don't spend too much time on this. Tomorrow is your midterm, but hopefully nobody's going to be surprised and everything like, what? We got a midterm today. The math kids that's in first period here, that's in Miss Lufus' room, make sure you're all coming here to second period. I'll make some room for you. We'll get some time so you can take it. It's 80 multiple choice. Make sure I have a study guide. I can have your name because I want to be checking all people's names that you have your 20 points and you have your 80 points on your potential 80 points on multiple choice here and add to your grade. And that will be your midterm grade for a push. And I'm working on Empire Wealth. Some people owe me Empire Wealth. You got to get with me at this time. So, you gotta make that up as well and everything. Organize with your grades. But the main thing I can emphasize now, get some rest and everything. I know it's just like I go on and on and on, and that's the way old people are. All right, see you guys. Take it easy.